Hello, and thank you for joining us. I'm Rebecca Ray, and I have the privilege of leading the Human Capital Center here at the Conference Board, and I'm very excited to be here today to share some information around a great new offering as part of your membership as a Human Capital Center member. And as you can see on the next slide, I'm going to be joined by Dr. Patty Phillips. And Patty is the CEO of the ROI Institute. And quite often, she needs no introduction. She and Jack Phillips have been at the forefront of ROI for a long time now. I know when I was a practitioner, I was the beneficiary of the many insights. It's been a privilege to partner on this particular process. And thank you so much for the generosity of spirit, Patty, that you and Jack and the team at the ROI Institute have given us.
Thank you, Rebecca. It's a pleasure. We always enjoy partnering with you and the team there at the Conference Board.
Well, thank you. I'm going to ask if we could just mention here that we'll hold all of the questions until the end, and we'll just talk a little bit about this brand new benefit. So let's go to the next slide, because for those of you who have had an opportunity to visit the TCB website in the recent weeks, you'll know that we have redesigned it, and it's really with an eye toward making this curated experience more beneficial and more positive for you. And so you'll see My TCB, which was a large undertaking by an awful lot of talented people at the Conference Board. And you can see that in the blue bar of My TCB, it really does try to bring forward to you the kinds of things that we know, given your profile, you're most likely to be interested in, or councils that you are already members of, or communities that you have joined. And so that's what you see across that blue bar. And the highlight here is on data and benchmarking. So when you click that, it will take you through to one of the three brand new offerings we have here at the Conference Board. I'll mention all three, and then of course we're going to focus today on the third one on your screen. We are partnering with HC Moneyball, and there's a tremendous AI-driven platform that will help determine materiality and also human capital metrics called HC Metrics. And we're partnering with HC Moneyball, as I mentioned, and the CEO, Solange Shiraz, has been partnering with us on recent research on materiality and also determining human capital metrics. And this platform, which is exclusive to the members of the Human Capital Center, organizations, is a unique tool, AI-driven, and it makes the research that we've done become actionable. We're also very pleased to partner with Dave Ulrich and Norm Smallwood and the RBL group. They have an AI-driven platform, and they have a tool called the Organizational Guidance System, which helps sitting CHROs and their teams sort of focus on where they can have the most impact given the many things vying for your attention and the many places you could choose to invest. But this is a way for organizations to collectively come to the right decisions. And thirdly, but certainly not last, is the opportunity to offer to you an ROI repository for human capital investments. Now, this, as I mentioned, is done in partnership with Patty Phillips and the team at the ROI Institute. And I don't want to steal the thunder, because you'll be amazed at the many things that are now available to the entire team at your organization. And one of the things I will mention is that in HC Metrics, in that platform, there are 2 seats. And so we have reached out to CHROs at these organizations that are members of my center and asked them to tell us who besides themselves gets that second seat. And so that's a whole process there. But the organizational guidance system is open to larger teams, and the ROI repository is open to every sitting Human Capital Center member. So with that, we'll go to the next slide if we could. And I'm going to turn this over to you, Patty, for taking us through, but I'm going to pop in once in a while. You know, we have a long history of ROI. It's something that we've had an opportunity to partner on, and there's a perfect example. And many years ago, Patty and I and Jack Fitzens, who would be the first to tell you he's the father of human capital analytics, we partnered with many organizations in a research working group environment, and we put together Human Capital Analytics, a primer. And that was the genesis for a lot of the research that we've done in the analytics space. And much of what you see there has been the direct result of a partnership with Patty and the team and our member companies. And so we're not new to the human capital analytics concept, but we are looking to help the entire profession move forward in this as well. So Patty, would you talk a little bit about ROI, just briefly as a concept, and then why we would care about being able to leverage these tools, and then the great repository that we've got going here so that our members can take advantage of it.
So as you mentioned, Rebecca, ROI is not new to the human capital analytics lexicon. We've been doing a lot of work, just our two organizations partnering together to talk about ROI in the context of human capital analytics. And in fact, you may recall, Rebecca, the Human Capital Analytics at Work volumes 1 and 2 have a couple of very good case studies. Two specific to ROI and the content we're talking about today. Verizon was kind enough to share 2 of their case studies in those 2 publications. So the challenge is for many organizations, ROI is still not used to the extent many leaders would hope that it is. And part of that is because of lack of know-how, just knowing how to do it. We talk about ROI, but how do you really make it work in an organization? Also, we find that many organizations have inconsistent measurements. In fact, most do. There's a way to work within that, but it tends to be a barrier for those organizations who would like to pursue ROI. Also, stage along the human capital analytics journey, how mature the practice is often a barrier to ROI use. Reactive versus proactive position on the issue. Now, what often causes pain for those who are pursuing ROI of human capital investments is when they react to the request. So they've already made the investment in a program, project, or initiative, and now someone's asking them to show them the money. That becomes a problem for them because they really haven't thought through ROI from the outset. Those organizations who take a proactive stance when it comes to accountability and measurement and ROI and business impact, it's much easier for them to pursue ROI because they've built their solutions to drive impact and ROI. And then 2, limited resources, which there's also a work around that as well. But we do see these as typical barriers to use for ROI. Just level setting, what we're talking about when we talk about ROI is the financial metric used to evaluate the efficiency or profitability of an investment, or to compare efficiency and profitability of an investment, multiple investments. And so there are many different measures we use at a corporate level in the audience. Your members all know these. So this is not new information. Many different measures that we use, and each of these measures have special purpose. For example, return on equity, its special purpose is looking at net income compared to shareholder equity. So it's not suitable for use when we're evaluating investments that we make in people. You see some of the others too, they're important to the organization and they do demonstrate efficient use of resources, but on the other hand, not necessarily suitable for what we're doing when we're evaluating human capital investments. The most fundamental measures are the ROI, return on investment percentage, the benefit cost ratio, and the payback period. Those are fundamental because we can use them for any type of investment, whether it's human capital investment, a marketing investment, even capital expenditures. We can use these measures, so we can use them across the enterprise in terms of evaluating the efficiency and profitability of all types of investments. Now, typically when we talk about ROI in the context of human capital, many of the studies that we see published focus on it from a macro perspective. So using correlation and regression analysis to make the connection between investments in people and macro level measures. So we call this macro level analysis. And the slide you see on the screen is a classic model that has been replicated and even improved upon over the decades. But it's where early in the 90s, Sears connected employee attitude about the company, the job in the company, to customer perception about service helpfulness and merchandise value, and then return on investment or return on assets. And they actually created this model. It took them quite a long time to do it. But they used the model, they could predict actual revenue increase for particular stores. And so they would see that if in a region, that region had a projection of a 5% increase in revenue, but one store saw a 5-point increase in employee attitude, they could predict with some level of certainty that that store would have a 5.5% increase in revenue. So it was an interesting model, and again, one that's been replicated. These macro level studies we can use to help inform where to place our focus. So for example, at Sears, using this model, they would place their focus or shifted their focus for many of their programs, like their leadership development and management type programs. They shifted it to focus on that employee experience that we talk about today. But what these models don't tell us is exactly what investments to make. So what programs are working, or what specific programs or projects or initiatives we need to pursue. So the macro level helps inform that there's an opportunity. But what we look at ROI from a micro level standpoint is, in which solutions do we invest to take advantage of that opportunity. So we use ROI to evaluate the efficiency and profitability of investing in specific initiatives like coaching or culture change or diversity, equity, inclusion. And it's a classic use of ROI. From an economic standpoint, it's pretty fundamental, because when we're trying to make resource allocation decisions, where to move our money, we have to have a mechanism to do it so we can make those decisions equitably. So if I'm looking not just within human capital, should I invest in coaching or leadership development or DE&I? We need a tool to help us look at those resources, but across the enterprise. Where do I invest my money? Do I invest it in developmental opportunities for my people, or do I invest it in marketing initiatives as well? And so cost benefit analysis and ROI are pretty fundamental to that type of decision making.
No. Patty, I would say that the ROI methodology, which of course, emanates from an economics perspective, can be applied to many, many things. And to your point, you could take a look at the ROI of marketing initiatives versus the ROI of let's say, leadership development program, and decide that the greater revenue potential for the organization might very well be to double down on developing leaders. But you don't know that until you can actually take a look at them in parallel.
Exactly. Absolutely. So it's really putting everything on equal terms, and meaning from a measurement standpoint, how are these different investments driving the measures that matter to the business, whether it's people measures or the business measures. But something that often gets lost, Rebecca, is, people get stuck on the quantitative metric. They get stuck on the ROI, or whatever that quantitative measure is that you're focused on. And we like to reinforce the fact that while ROI is important, and it is telling us how well we're doing with the benefits compared to the investment, reporting it in isolation of other measures is insufficient. We always want to report ROI in the context of other quantitative measures, qualitative measures, financial, non-financial, tangible, and intangible, because it's really about the entire story. So on the surface, we could look at the ROI of a leadership development program and the ROI of marketing, assuming you have implemented the same approach and followed the same standards, because there's multiple ways to get to it. But assuming you follow the same approach to get there, we could compare those and say financially, one investment is better than the other. But what's the rest of the story? How's it going to impact our people, our society, our environment? So, what are the other measures out there that are telling us the bigger picture of the story? So we always like to reinforce that while ROI is important, it is only one measure. We have to look at things from a quantitative, qualitative, financial, non-financial, tangible, intangible perspective if we want to make the best decisions for our people and for our organizations. So that's where the ROI methodology comes in to play, and the portal is really built to support this methodology, or parts of the methodology that members are curious about or interested in pursuing. The process has been around for a long time, so it's not new, and certainly not new to many of the Conference Board Human Capital Center members. It is probably the most robust approach to demonstrating the ROI of human capital investments out there, and is certainly the most applied and used across organizations worldwide. So we built the portal to support this process because of its use and because it is robust. It's not just looking at a single metric to declare success of a program, but it's really looking at the entire process that we're putting into place and evaluating it in terms that resonate with all stakeholders. And it enables us to make better decisions about our investments and our people. When we do look at ROI, we are looking at those fundamental metrics, the benefit cost ratio and the ROI. We typically work off the ROI formula at the bottom. This is the return on investment reported as a percentage return, but we also work with the benefit cost ratio. We work with a lot of government agencies and nonprofits that still lean toward the benefit cost ratio. So benefit cost ratio, or the BCR, compares the annual program benefits in monetary terms to the program cost. It's an annual rate of return. So here we're looking at a ratio. So program benefits to program cost. Benefit cost ratio is the output of cost benefit analysis, which is grounded in welfare economics, public finance. It's been around for a long time. ROI has as well. It comes from business. Here we're looking at net program benefits compared to program cost. So it's earnings compared to investment. And then multiply it times 100 to get to that percentage. So those are the two measures that we work with. But when we report it along this chain of value that occurs as we invest in programs, projects, people, initiatives, networking, collaboration, whatever the project is. That first level really just represents the investment itself. So it's not demonstrating value, it's demonstrating the investment. Unfortunately, these types of data, scope of the project, volume, number of people involved, these are the types of data that we see reported all too often. And we always like to remind people, if we get too proud of this, we're putting a bullseye on our chest saying, here's all the activity we're involved in. Well, activities represent costs get cut. We want to position those activities as investments, and to do so, we have to demonstrate some type of result. So the framework you see here is just the way we categorize data, but it represents this logical chain of impact that occurs. Reaction data, here we want to make sure that people involved in the program or the project are bought in. They're committed to making it work. Learning data, it does not matter what the investment is. Someone needs to know something to make it work. So here we want to make sure people know what they need to know to do what we want them to do. Application data, here's where we follow up to see, are people doing what we want them to do? Are they applying knowledge, skill, information, and insight? Are they reaching out to the new contacts that they made through a networking event? Are they using the data generated by the analytics practice? So are people doing what you want them to do? And the consequence of that is improvement in measures of output, quality, cost, time, customer satisfaction, job satisfaction, work habits, innovation. We look at impact from the company perspective, the business perspective. We will look at impact from the society perspective. We also look at impact from an environmental perspective. So, where the company is in terms of what matters to them, impact is the consequence of people doing what you want them to do based on what they know about the program or project, given that it is perceived as relevant and important to them. And then ROI is simply a matter of converting measures to money and comparing it to the cost to get to that ROI. To ensure these measures are reliable, that's where your process comes in. And so this is our 12-step process. It all begins with identifying that opportunity for the organization to make money, save money, avoid cost, or do some greater good, and defining those business measures up front. That's the why of what we do. That's the why of a program or a project. And then we go through our analysis using some of those macro level studies or network analysis, or even doing deep dive qualitative research like interpretive phenomenological analysis, which we have clients do, to sort out what is really going on in the organization that if we changed it could help us improve these measures, and what's the right solution. And then we position that solution, defining the specific measures of success, defining those objectives, and then designing the solution around the objectives, and then measuring based on those objectives. And then as we roll it out, we collect data to see if people are bought in. Are they learning what they need to know? Are they doing what we want them to do? And are the measures changing? Now, a big step in the process, which is often the biggest question asked about any result presented, when someone makes the claim that a program or project delivered these results, it's this step to isolate the effects of the program. Answering the question, how do you know it was your program that caused results? This is probably where we've put most of our work over the past 3 decades of working in this space. And so here we look at experimental design. And I know people will say, well, people aren't interventions. Well, I think sometimes your coaches and your chaplains and your ombuds, they may think a little differently because they are interventions, but the programs that we invest in are people, they are interventions toward change. So sometimes we may invest in a program or project as a pilot to see if that program generates the change we seek, and then we match it with another group not involved. So classic experimental design is a tool that we use, maybe not as frequently as we'd like to, from a research standpoint, but we do use it. But other techniques you can use, trendline analysis, you can use your mathematical modeling. Today with technology and the data we have available, we can create all kinds of models that will give us some information to suggest there's a relationship, a causal relationship between 2 measures. And then sometimes you just have to go ask people. If you can't create a model, you can't set up an experiment, you can't use trendline analysis, go ask someone. How much improvement is due to the program and not something else? And then to get it to ROI, it's simply converting measures to money. Some measures we choose to leave as intangible. We bring in our costs, calculate the ROI, report it out. And then the last step is a step that's often overlooked, and that is actually using the data. Look at the data to understand what is really going on. So again, we have the framework of data, represents the value chain. We have the process model and a set of standards that help ensure the data we're reporting are reliable. That leads to credibility. That is what the whole portal is all about, is to help people understand the process, but more than that, actually implement the process, even if it's only implementing parts of the process. We've tried to give the tools and resources that will support that implementation.
So Patty, this is, I think, a great place to start to talk about some of these tools. It's one thing to talk about the framework and sort of the intellectual process, but I think what's exciting is what we're going to share next, which is the actual tools that can meet people where they are, help them plug in where these tools, templates, case studies would be most valuable. And that's, I think, the beauty of this.
Yeah, absolutely. Theory is great, right? You can write a good book, but can anyone do anything with it? And so that's what we've tried to do with the portal, is give some practical tools that not that we created on our own, but we create with our clients. And again, our tools are very simple. We like simple because people will use simple. People don't use hard. If you want someone to do something, make it easy. If you want them to stop doing it, make it hard. And so we try to give simple tools that we've created over time with our clients and participants and the folks with whom we've worked. So to get to the tools, we're going to go into the member site, go up to the ROI repository link in, and you'll see the first item, the first resource are these tools. So just click on the tools, and within the tools, you'll see a variety of opportunity to either learn more about the process or actually take some steps, put the process to work. So there's a document that describes introduction to the process, another document, 12 easy steps to ROI. That way, if you want to look at each of the 12 steps, it's just a 1 page on each step, but you don't have to read an entire book to understand what we're talking about here. We also have a document that describes presenting results to senior management, which can be a challenge sometimes. And we share this case study that we have used. It's based on the actual experience of one of our clients who helped us write the case study. We call it the Joan Kravitz story, where she actually presented the ROI results to senior management. Again, ROI is compelling. And as soon as you say it, ears and eyes perk up. So how do you present it in such a way that people are compelled to take action, but they also recognize your process and how you got to that process? or got to those results. There's another document, help you think through measurement goals. And in this document, the alignment conversation, this is important, especially on the front end before investing in a particular program or project. So the alignment conversation tool can be very helpful because it's just giving you some questions to think about prior to investing to ensure that whatever the program or the project you're putting into place aligns with the business needs and that it's set up for success before ever implementing. And then there's just a template, presentation template, real simple presentation template there for those who may need it. Now, another tool we have in there is our evaluation planning workbook. And the evaluation planning workbook is an Excel workbook. So again, not fancy, but simple Excel workbook. We've built it so that those people who are interested in understanding which programs are candidates for impact and ROI analysis, because not all are, we've got a tool in there to help them sort through that. We have a data collection plan, an ROI analysis plan to help plan the evaluation of a project. There's also a simple communication plan and a project plan. And then at the very bottom of the screen, you should see the tabs that we have. So there's instructions, we have examples of each of the plans, and then we have the templates themselves. So I'll give you a quick look at those. So with the project or program selection worksheet, as I mentioned, not all programs are worthy of evaluation, impact, and ROI, because some things we do for our people just because it's the right thing to do, because we have the extra resources and we want to do it. If that's the case, don't worry about impact and ROI, but there are some programs that are strategic, they align with operational goals, they're expensive, and they're true interventions for change or for improving those business measures. Those are the candidates for evaluation to impact and ROI. So this simple worksheet just allows people to list all of their programs in the first column, and then they score the programs based on the criteria that we use in helping clients understand which programs are candidate for evaluation to up to ROI. So they just score each of their programs based on the criteria. Then over on the right, you see how the scoring works. So you get a little bar that kind of weights it, so you can quickly see how each program is doing against the other. And then you can just filter it with a high, from high to low, and those with the highest score are your candidates for ROI. So again, simple tool developed in collaboration with some of our clients. So you have the example, you have the worksheet. So this may be useful for many people because sometimes it's hard to discern exactly which programs we should focus on and evaluate to ROI. So the workbook has this worksheet. There's also an alignment worksheet. We use this worksheet all the time when we're having conversations with clients because they want to know, should I take it to impact? Should we just evaluate it for behavior change? And we'll actually walk them through the questions that are represented in this worksheet. The complementary document is going to be this alignment conversation. So here you sort out why you're implementing the program, what's the payoff opportunity the business needs, what is happening that needs to change, what are the potential solutions, what do people need to know, how do we roll it out, and then setting up those objectives, and then just planning at a high level how you would go about evaluating. So again, simple worksheet, but it's a useful worksheet because it can help guide the questioning. There's also 2 plans as people are planning those impact studies and those ROI studies, the data collection plan and the ROI analysis plan. So you're just planning your work, working your plan. As you work through each of the plans, if you click on the top row, the cell in each of the cells in the top row, it gives you tips about what to think about when you're looking at different data collection strategies, sources of data, timing of data collection. And then on the ROI analysis plan, this is where you sort out how you're going to isolate the effects of the program given the different measures, what techniques will you use to convert data to money, what costs do we include, the intangibles, your targets for communication, and what factors could influence performance in the measures. And then finally, the communication plan and the project plan. So just for some real simple tools that can be useful as you're planning a study. So does that help, Rebecca?
It does. And, Patty, what I like about this, and again, it just reinforces my appreciation for the generosity of the ROI Institute to provide all of this. But, there's an overview, there's the positioning, and then there's the actual tools with, built-in support. And I think that's critical because not everyone is fully, all at the end of the ROI journey. Many are on a journey. And what I like here is that the number of tools takes you through that process wherever you start. So terrific. Thank you.
Yeah, sure. And then some other tools that may be useful as you're, working yourself through the journey. There's some self-assessments, just very simple. Again, we like simple works. Simple self-assessments. And the assessments are really intended to get you thinking. So to get to the assessments, go back into your portal, to the conference board, and then you just access your assessments in the portal. Start your assessment, and then there's 4 assessments. There's a PDF version if you want to download the assessment, maybe work with your team, and then you can also complete the assessments online. So you'll see a link in the portal that can get you to the online assessments. We begin with, is your organization ready for ROI? Some aren't. I mean, some are fortunate that they haven't been asked and all their programs have always worked. They've never had a program failure. They have all the money and resources available to them and will never need ROI, right? They'll never need that level of accountability, or they have no real curiosity about how they're driving business impact. So if they're those organizations, then don't worry about it. But there are many organizations where they want to make sure, even though they have all the resources in the world, they want to make sure that the programs they're putting in place are helping the organization drive that excellence that so many CEOs are looking for, that they're making change to business measures as well as the people measures. So this is just a real simple assessment. So are you really ready for ROI? And then also just a fun assessment, what do you know about it? Also, this assessment is really what is driving your human capital investment. So your strategy for investing in people. Are you investing with the rest because this is what everybody's doing? Or are you investing because there's a real payoff for the investment? So again, something to get you thinking. And then also, how results-based are your human resources programs? Are you activity driven, where all you report is all the activity? We've got this many people joining the business resource group. We've got this many people in the leadership development program. We've got this many programs going. That's very activity driven. Activity represents cost. Costs get cut. So are you more of an investment center?
I mean, simply announcing how many people you've sheep dipped in an orientation program is not a winning strategy.
Not at all. Not at all. And that's why that front end alignment, that alignment conversation is so important. It's like, why are we doing this? What are we really trying to get to as we go through this sheep dipping process? So you're exactly right. Not a winning strategy. So anyway, a couple of things to help you and members think about where they are and where they might want to go. And then there are the calculators. So the calculators, again, from the portal, the conference board portal, you'll see access to the calculators. We've included a calculator to help calculate monetary benefits of your program, so the annual monetary benefits. There's a program cost calculator. It gets into detail all the costs you want to consider when you're looking at fully loaded cost of a program or project, an ROI calculator. And then we also added a turnover calculator just because so many of the programs we get involved in focus on that turnover. And there's dozens of turnover calculators out there, but we thought it important to include here. Now, in terms of the monetary program benefits calculator, and when you start using this, please call us so we can talk about how you can use it. It's built for you to use both after a program you want to show the ROI, or you can use it as when you're forecasting an ROI. So let's say you're investing in a program, use the calculator to sort out, well, what's the potential monetary benefits for the first year of implementation? And we work with 1 year to be conservative. So there's 5 steps to get to the monetary value. You have to focus on whatever that unit of measure is. And so let's say it's an absence. The value of the measure. And if you read the materials in there, talk about how you can convert measures to money. But we look at the value. So we assume that it's $105 per absence based on standard value. Change in performance. So this step number 3 is all about the change in performance resulting from your program after you isolate the effects of the program, or if you're forecasting, what is the potential change in performance? And we work off 1 month because that's just easier from a math standpoint. Annualize the change in performance. Again, ROI is annualized. It's an annual rate of return. And then you calculate the annual monetary benefit. So you see over on the right, you just plug in your numbers. 1 absence cost $105,000. You can see what our change in performance is, calculates for you the total annual monetary benefit, and then you can add 2 additional measures to it and we'll total it for you. So that gives you the numerator of the ROI formula. And then again, we have the turnover cost calculator as well, if that's an area that's of interest to you. Now the denominator, fully loaded cost. And this is what surprises a lot of people. The investment we make in our programs, projects, and initiatives are not just how much we pay the supplier to support us with it, right? It means all of it. It means the assessment cost that led us to this solution. It's the development, design, acquisition cost, it's implementation cost, the evaluation cost. So the calculator includes all of that. So you can see what it really costs you to implement whatever this program or process is that you're interested in demonstrating the ROI. And then there's the ROI calculator. So all we do is copy over our monetary benefits and our program cost, and the output is the ROI percentage, as well as the benefit cost ratio. So those are the calculators. And then to support all of it, we've added some case studies so you can see how others have done it. So again, through the conference board portal, all you have to do is go down to case studies, see case studies, and we've included 5 case studies that we think you'll be interested in. One is an ROI and engagement case study, and Rebecca, you were part of developing that case study book with us. So ROI and engagement case study. There's an ROI study on business coaching. It's one of our favorite case studies. It's a great case study when you bring people into a program or process and they're all coming from different functions. They all have their own problems. Not everyone has a turnover problem. Some people may have a quality problem. Some people may have an inventory cost problem. Some people may have a turnover problem. But this solution, if we develop these executives through this business coaching solution, they can then better lead their team to solve their problem. So it's a really good example of what you can do when you're bringing people in from across the enterprise. They all have their own issues they want to contend with, and you're trying to enable them to do that. So good case study there. Work at home. We have been so excited that we did this study well before this work at home conversation even occurred. This is a good case study. It demonstrates how a work at home solution had a positive impact on productivity. And they also look at how it had a positive impact on the environment by getting these folks to work at home. And then, of course, stress management, diversity, and inclusion. So those are the case studies that we have. So some real life examples of how this process works. So Rebecca, does that help?
I think so. And Patty, thank you for walking us through. I think maybe this would be a good time to pause for any questions we might have from attendees. So if you might advance this slide, that'd be great. I think that the key takeaways here is, first of all, what an incredible repository of tools and templates for people who are looking to bring this level of discipline into their programs. And, you know, I heard you mention before about the organizations that say, we don't need to worry about this. Well, wait till you have a change in leadership, and all of a sudden, your culture seems to shift, because what the CEO is involved in and interested in learning more about, all of a sudden, people may become very interested in ROI. And again, to your point, figuring out the ROI after something has been completed is not the time to make your plans. It is always done best up front, if indeed it's one of those programs or initiatives you do want to spend that kind of energy on.
Absolutely. So if we're thinking strategic, we need to treat it as such.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Well, Patty, I think what I'd like to do is just to mention a couple of things in closing. And if we could go to the next slide. You know, for those of you who are interested in learning more or have any concerns about perhaps access from the MyTCB site, the brand new member portal. You could reach out to either Steve Economy or M.A. Moran. They are both members of member engagement directors, and they can help you with access from the TCB side. And once in the tools, if you have questions about the tools, or perhaps you have a suggestion, or you have a request for more information, certainly you could reach out to the team there at the ROI Institute. I think what's also exciting, Patty, is yes, we have these brand new offerings, and yes, there are 3 distinct offerings, I think all of which complement each other. But we have a series of webcasts that we'll be doing among the 3 partners. And I'm very excited about what we will do on an annual basis, which is the State of Human Capital Report in partnership with you and with Dave Ulrich and Solana Shiraz and all of our valued members. So I'm very excited about that partnership. And I just want to thank you and the team at the ROI Institute for your generosity of spirit and your perpetual partnership. So thank you very, very much, Patty, for walking us through this and for all of the work you and the team have done to bring this forward to our members. Thank you again. And thank you all of you who were able to join us today.